This is the daily Rambam, Maimonides, reading for January 10th, 2026, which was Shabbat 21 Tevet 5786. Here it is. We're in the laws of Avel, of mourning, chapter 3. Kol Kohen shenitma lemeis, chutz mishisha meisim המפרשים התורה, או אשתו בעדים ועשרה, הרי זה לא יקה. שנאמר, לנפש לא יטמא בימיו, ויקרא כפעלה ופעלה. With the exception of the 6 relatives mentioned in the Torah and his wife, whenever a priest becomes impure because of contact with a corpse, if there are witnesses and a warning is administered, he is punished by lashes. As Leviticus 21 verse 1 states, no one shall contract ritual impurity for the sake of a deceased person among his people. This applies whether one touches the corpse, stands over it, or carries it. And it applies to a corpse and to all other forms of ritual impurity stemming from a corpse, as implied by no one shall contract ritual impurity for the sake of a deceased person among his people. וכבר פירשנו בהלכות תרומת מייס כל הדברים המטעמים מן המייס מן התורה או מדבריהם. In Hilchos Tumas Meis, we already described all the factors associated with the corpse that convey ritual impurity according to scriptural law and according to rabbinic law. וכן נורא כהן בקבר לא יקה. אבל נוגע הוא בבגדים שנהגו במייס, אף על פי שמטמא בהם תומאס שיבו. Similarly, a priest receives lashes if he touches a grave. He may, however, touch clothes that touch the corpse, even though by doing so he contracts ritual impurity that continues for 7 days. Similarly, if a priest enters a covered structure into which ritual impurity enters, he is lashed. This applies even though the source of impurity itself is in another building. We've already explained all the types of tents into which ritual impurity can enter and depart, the laws involving foliage and projections, the entities which bring ritual impurity and those which interpose between ritual impurity, which involve scriptural law and which involve rabbinic law. All of this is discussed in Hilchot Tumat Met. ושם ביארנו שאין אוהב זכרחוב ממתם באוהל, ולפיכך כברויסיהן טהורים. ומותר לכהן להיכנס לשם, ולדרוך כברויסיהן, ואין אוסר אלא שיגע בטומאו יישאנו, כמו שביארנו שם. There we explained that non-Jews do not convey ritual impurity through overhangs. Therefore their graves are pure, and a priest may enter their cemetery and walk on their graves. So what was the problem according to the Gemara that says that the door of the flood were buried there? What was the problem? He is forbidden only to touch impurity or carry it, as we explained there. Kohen shenichnas lo el hameis, o lebeis hakvois bishkogo. Yachad yadis uboy, im kavat v'yatza padu. Im yoshev sham kedei shtachavoyo kedei, kemo shebe'anu, be'inyan tumas mikdash, harei ze lo ike. The following laws apply when a priest enters a building where a corpse is located or a cemetery inadvertently and he is given a warning after he discovers the fact. If he jumps and leaves, he is not liable. If, however, he remains there for the time it takes to prostrate oneself, which we explain with regard to impurity in the temple, he is lashed. Nichnas v'yotza v'chazim v'nichnas v'yotza v'im yisrubo al kol pam v'pam boke al kol knisa v'knisa. The following rule applies if he entered and departed. If he was given a warning for each time, he is given lashes for every entrance. Chenim naga b'meis v'yisrubo yuporash v'chazim naga yisrubo. Afilu me'apomim lo ike al kol achas v'yachas. Similarly, if he touched a corpse, is given a warning and then disengages himself, and afterwards touches it and is given a warning, even if the sequence is repeated 100 times, he's given lashes for each touch. Okay. Hayanogea v'lo parash. O shoyam v'nesek v'aris v'nalo meisim acherim. Okay, where were we? I think we're on Hayanogea v'lo parash. O shoyam v'nesek v'aris v'nalo meisim acherim afal pi she'yisu bo kama pamim eno loike el achas sherehu yechulal v'omed kol zman shelo peresh. If he was touching a corpse and did not disengage himself, or he was standing in the cemetery and touched other corpses, although he is given a warning for several times, he receives lashes only once. For as long as he does not cease, he is continuing to desecrate his priestly state. Okay? Next, Hamatame Yasakoyin Im Hayu Shneim Mazidin Loike Hakoyin V'zeh Shetimo Avel Al V'lifnei Iver Lo Titen Michshol V'yikra Yutet Yudalet Haya HaKohen Shogeg V'zeh Shetimo Mezid Harei Zeh Shetimo Loike. The following rule applies when one causes a priest to contract ritual impurity. If they both acted intentionally, the priest receives lashes, and the person who caused him to contract impurity violates the prohibition against placing a stumbling block in front of the blind if the priest was not aware of the transgression and the person who caused him to contract impurity acted intentionally. That person receives lashes. Okay. Kohen Gadol Eino Mitam Lekroidim שנאמר, לאביו ולאמו לא יטמא. פרק כ"א. וכן, 21:11. Leviticus 21:11. וכן, אינו נכנס עם הבית ובאוהל אפילו קרוביו, שנאמר על כל נפשוס מס לא יבוא. ולמדת שהוא חייב בלא יבוא וחייב בלא יטמא. A high priest may not become impure for the sake of his relatives, as Leviticus 21:11 states, he shall not become impure for his father's or his mother's sake. Similarly, he does not enter a shelter where there is a corpse, even the corpse of one of his relatives, as it states, he shall not enter a place where there is any corpse. Thus, we learn that he is liable both for not entering and for not becoming impure. was implied. If the high priest touches or carries a corpse, he receives lashes for one transgression. Nichnas la'oil v'yashav sham o shemeis halav hameis o shenichnas v'shido teva migdal u'bachaveru pora la'al gag hashida sherei tuma u'bi'abayin ke'echad loi ke'shtayim mishum lo yavo. Okay. If he enters a shelter and remains there until a person dies or enters a chest, bureau, or drawer, and a colleague comes and opens the top of this container, and thus his contact with impurity and his entrance into the shelter come at the same time, he receives 2 sets of lashes for the prohibition against entering and for the prohibition against becoming impure. Nitma mikoidem v'achar kach nichnas lo'il im hitru Im hitru bo loike afal habio, when the high priest became impure beforehand and then entered a shelter where a corpse was located, if he is warned, he should receive lashes even for his entry. When a priest, kohen sheba b'meis mitzvah b'derech harei ze mitamelo afilu kohen gadol chayav litameh bo lo ulikvaro. When a priest, even a high priest, encounters an unattended corpse on the road, he's obligated to become impure for its sake and bury it. Ve'ez mitzvah, ve'ezahu meis mitzvah, ze echam yisrael shayam mushlach aderech ve'en lo koivrim ve'davar ze halacha mipi hakabbalah. What is meant by an unattended corpse? A Jewish corpse may cast away on the road without anyone to bury it. This is halacha conveyed by the received tradition. When does the above apply? When the priest is alone and there is no one else with him. Even when he calls out on the road, no one answers him. Avel im kishish gachem oyin so in ze mitzvah el kor lacherim yavohu yitasku bo. If, however, when he calls others answer, this is not considered an unattended corpse. Instead, he should call to the others that they should come and tend to the corpse. Haya kohen v'nazir nachman derech bo b'meis mitzvah yitasek bo anazir sheharei ein kedushato kedushat oilam v'al yitamin bo ha-kohen af al pi shehu kohen hedyot. If a priest and a Nazirite are proceeding on a road and they encounter an unattended corpse, the Nazirite should tend to it. The rationale is that his holiness is not of the eternal nature. The priest, even an ordinary priest, should not become impure. Haya kohen gadol v'kohen hedyot yitamar kohen hedyot. If a high priest was going to live with an ordinary priest, the ordinary priest should become impure. The general principle is whoever is on a higher level of holiness should become impure last. When a Sagan and the priest anointed to lead the army at war encountered an unattended corpse, the priest anointed to lead the army at war should become impure, not the Sagan. Nasi Shemes, Hakol Mitamino, Afilu Kohanim. Asau Kemes Mitzvah, Lakol Ne Sheakol Chayav Michwaidoi. When a Nasi dies, everyone, even priests, should become impure for his sake. Our sages had him considered as an unintended corpse because everyone is obligated in his honor. Similarly, all must observe the rites of Aninut for his sake. Benot Aaron no uzaru al tumat met shinemar emor el kohanim bnei Aaron kafal alaf bnei Aaron v'lo benot Aaron v'chein holchim ma'chalalim mutar nitameh shinemar emor el kohanim bnei Aaron ad shiyu b'kuhunam. Okay, the daughters of Aaron were warned to avoid the ritual impurity imparted by a corpse. This derived from Leviticus 21:1. See, the priest, sons of Aaron, implied is the sons of Aaron and not the daughters of Aaron. Oh yeah, the daughters of ones were not warned to avoid it. Yeah, were not warned, meaning they're allowed to be. They are allowed to be. Similarly, Chalalim, they are permitted to be impure. This is also derived from the words, the priests, the sons of Aaron, meaning to be included in the prohibition. Their priesthood must be intact. Okay? Kohen katan harigdal muzar shelo yitmu. Im ba'is hamim mi'atmo in beis din mitzuvin Allah v'afrisha aval aviv tzarich lechanchu b'kedusha. When a priest is a minor, the adults are warned that they should not have him contact ritual impurity. If he comes to contract impurity on his own initiative, the court is not obligated to separate him from the source of impurity. His father, however, must educate him in the holiness of the priesthood. Meis tavis arba amois shelo ilituma v'chol kohen shnichnas letoch arba amos maken v'semachas mardus v'chein im nichnas lebeis hapras או יצא החוצה לארץ, או שנטמע בדם תבוסה, או בגולל ודופק, וכיוצא בהן מעקינוס או מעקס מרדוס, בפני שהן אבוס של זבריהם, כמו שביארנו בהלכות תומאס בייס. אבל אם נכנס לבייס הקברוס, לא כן מן התורה. Okay? The 4 cubits circumscribed around a corpse are deemed impure. Any priest that enters into these 4 cubits is given stripes for rebellious conduct, as if he does it intentionally, of course. Similarly, if priests enter into a Beit Pras, go to the diaspora, become impure through contact with the mixture of blood, a gravestone, or the stones which support the gravestone, and the like, they are given stripes for rebellious conduct because these entities are sources for ritual impurity by rabbinic law, as we explain in Hilchot Tumat Met. If, however, the priest enters a cemetery, he receives lashes according to scriptural law. Okay? 14, final sif. I'm going to read the whole Hebrew and then the whole English. Isha Odom Torah Afapi Sheyesh Sham Mi Shilamdu Eretz Israel Lo Min Hakol Adam Zocher Lilmod V'chein Mitamim B'tumah Sham Divam L'chmoed Abriyos Ketzad Avel Shehu Shehalach L'beis Apras Hakol L'hoin L'chin Acher Al Nachem Sham V'chein Midalgin Al Gabi Aronos של מייס מקראת מנוחים אפילו מלכי עובדי כרחובים וכן להבחין בינם לבין מלכי ישראל כשיחזור כבודם נרקום וכן כל יוצא בהם כל יוצא בזה וכן מטעמי בתומה של לדון עם עובדי כרחובים ולהם מפני שלא שהוא מעצום יד וכן כל כיוצא בזה. Okay? Holy my Ketzad, how so? What is implied? I mean, how so? If a mourner walks through the Beit Pras, everyone follows him, having to comfort him. Similarly, we may walk over the coffins of the dead, to greet Jewish kings. This is allowed even to greet Gentile kings, so that a distinction will be able to be made between them and Jewish kings when their glory will be returned to its place. Similarly, leniency is granted for all analogous situations. Also, the priest may incur ritual impurity of rabbinic origin to enter into judgment and disputation with the Gentiles concerning property, for he is saving it from their hands. Similarly, laws apply in all analogous situations.